Tonight, we welcome to our center seat former House Speaker, current Republican presidential candidate, Newt Gingrich. Mr. Speaker, thanks for being here.
Great to be here.
Well, listen, there are some in the Washington pundit arena who in the summer said your campaign was all but dead. Some of them may have even been sitting on this panel. Now, you look at national polls. USA Today Gallup, you're at 12%, currently in third place. In the Des Moines Register poll, you're at 7%, although anecdotally in Iowa you're doing very well from the crowd size. What is the path? What is the path to the nomination? What do you tell supporters out there who are questioning whether you have the support staff and the ability to make this happen? Well,
first of all, this summer we came close to not surviving, so I think there was a period there when it was reasonable to wonder what was going on. We've built a campaign of solutions. If you go to newt.org, you'll see a proposed 21st century contract with America that's pretty elaborate, probably the most substantive of any campaign in recent times. And we are now methodically doing better and better. People, both from the debates and from the various speeches, are responding very strongly. There were 3 major speeches in Iowa in the last 10 days. People, I think, in every single news story said I won all 3 events that were multiple candidate events, and we're seeing it in our fundraising. We've already raised $2 million in 5 weeks, which is almost as much as we raised. In fact, about almost as much as we raised in the whole rest of the campaign, and it's accelerating, largely online. We're opening offices in Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina. We already have offices in Georgia and Florida. And I think we'll continue to accelerate.
Do you have to win Iowa?
I think we have to be in the top 2 or 3 in Iowa. We have to be competitive in New Hampshire, where Romney may well be his strongest state in the country, either that or Massachusetts. And then we should, our goal is to win South Carolina and then to go on and win Florida. And then from that point on, be in a very, very competitive environment.
On Meet the Press, you were asked about Paul Ryan's Medicare plan. This is what you said.
I don't think right-wing social engineering is any more desirable than left-wing social engineering. I don't think imposing radical change from the right or the left is a very good way for a free society to operate.
Charles.
The radical engineering in that case, I suspect, was the fact that the Ryan plan would substitute existing Medicare for a subsidy, where the government would give a subsidy for an individual to buy private insurance. Romney has come out with a plan that incorporates what Ryan is doing, but would add the alternative of keeping Medicare as it is. Is that your position, and is that not radical social engineering, or is it less radical social engineering?
Well, you should go back and play David Gregory's question. David Gregory said, if there's a very unpopular plan, he didn't say Ryan. If something
but that was the plan that was on the
table. But he said if something is very unpopular, should Republicans ram it through? No, we had just lived through Obamacare being rammed through. My advice, having successfully passed welfare reform, having, by the way, successfully reformed Medicare so well in '96 nobody noticed it, having balanced the budget for 4 years in a row for the only time in your lifetime, my advice is that you ought to make sure people understand what you're doing and they support it. Now, I actually do think Romney has improved, and I suspect Paul would agree. The Romney has improved Paul's proposal because he does allow you to say you can take the money and stay in the current system, or you can go over and you can get a brand new
is that your position?
That's not, I wouldn't object to that. That's a piece of it. But it's a much larger question if you're talking about health care. But there's another part to that. I would actually make that offer next year. I mean, I'd say, fine, if the choice is, let's allow people to have the choice of a private sector insurance plan, which they buy, and I would also, as Congressman Tom Price does, allow them to pay more out of their own pocket if they want to. You could go to a voluntary premium support plan this next year. That is assuming you think people want it.
Do you think people want it?
I think some people will want it. I think a lot of people will be very cautious. But I think imposing it is a real gamble.
And that's the radical social engineering, giving no alternative.
I think when you impose upon people no alternative about a plan they don't understand, that they think is at the center of their life, it is very dangerous for any party.
Juan.
Mr. Speaker, you started the Drill Here, Drill Now movement through your group Solutions Now. And I don't know if you noticed, but over the weekend there were several hundred protesters outside the White House demonstrating against the Keystone XL pipeline.
Right.
And you're aware that previously in the pipelines like Prudhoe Bay, there have been spills, accidents. Do you have any reservations about backing a pipeline or more drilling given the bad track record?
Well, first of all, there's not a very bad track record. I don't think any Alaskan would suggest to you that they ought to close the pipeline. I don't think any Texan would suggest to you they ought to close the pipelines in Texas. If you look at a map of the U.S. and where there are pipelines around this country, it's astonishing how much natural gas and how much oil we move around this country. We do it with an extraordinarily safe record. And most of the allegations about the Keystone Pipeline are just plain baloney. They involve a supposed threat to an aquifer which is clearly geologically impossible. It's not going to happen. So what the president's doing is the president doesn't want to make the environmentalists mad, and he doesn't want to infuriate everybody who wants a job. So in the middle of 9% unemployment, he's doing exactly what he used to do when he was a state senator. He's voting present.
So you think that basically on Prudhoe Bay and what happened down on the Gulf, no problem?
I don't know of anybody in Louisiana who isn't angry that the president has crippled their economy, cost over 100,000 jobs, and basically forced the major big deep drills to leave. You know, when a company issues a report that says, because of political instability in the United States, we're now moving to the Congo, there is something profoundly wrong with the Obama administration.
Mr. Speaker, I want to stick with energy policy and play a clip from an ad that you starred in just a couple of years ago.
We don't always see eye to eye, do we, Newt?
No, but we do agree our country must take action to address climate change.
We need cleaner forms of energy, and we need them fast.
That was a striking ad for me, striking ad for I think a lot of Republicans around the country. Is the Earth warming? If so, why is it warming? And what is that urgent action we need to take?
Well, first of all, it's probably the dumbest single thing I've done in recent years. It is inexplicable. As somebody used to say, you know, there aren't enough hay wagons to stand on to get people to understand that one. So you just need to kind of relax and go, that was dumb.
Were you being held hostage when that was
No, it was just dumb. I was trying to do something I failed to do. Because I do think it's important for conservatives to be in the middle of the debate over the environment. And I think we can. And I wrote a book with Terry Maple called "Contract with the Earth," outlining a pro-market, pro-entrepreneur, innovative environmentalism. Let me say, first of all, this will probably get me into some interesting arguments. I actually don't know whether global warming is occurring. The vast majority of the National Academy of Science says it is. A minority says it is not. Science is not actually voted on. Science is a function of truth. What I do know is that if you look at exactly what was said in that ad, finding innovative new ways of getting cleaner energy ought to be something most Americans feel pretty comfortable with. I testified against cap and trade the same day that Al Gore testified in favor. American Solutions fought to defeat it in the Senate, and we're part of defeating it. I do not think you should have a gigantic central government model of solution, and I don't think you should spend trillions of dollars on a theory.
Did you back then believe in warming, or no?
No, I back then said, look, I'm an amateur paleontologist. I wanted to be a vertebrate paleontologist as a child. The Earth's temperatures go up and down over over geologic times over and over again. As recently as 11,000 years ago, the Gulf Stream quit for 600 years. And for 600 years, you had an ice age in Europe because there was no warm water coming up. And then it started up again. Nobody knows why it quit. Nobody knows why it started up. So I'm agnostic, but what I'm saying, I would say to all my conservative friends, don't assume automatically the entire National Academy of Sciences is wrong. And I would say to the National Academy, don't assume that a vote by renowned scientists is necessarily truth.
Speaker, we're going to have much more with you and the panel after a quick break. And don't forget, log on your questions on Special Report Online. We're back with former House Speaker Newt Gingrich in the center seat. Now to foreign policy. Charles.
Mr. Speaker, the IAEA is going to be delivering a report in a couple of days which will show that Iran is clearly on a path to acquiring a nuclear weapon. It could be on the threshold. If you were president today, what would you do about that? Would you threaten or would you carry out a military strike? And if you didn't, and the Israelis were going to, would you give them a green light, a yellow light, or a red light?
Well, let me work backwards. If the Israelis decide as a matter of national survival that they have to eliminate the Iranian nuclear capacity, I would strongly support them automatically.
Green light.
I don't think the United States has the moral right to say to a country whose people have already gone through one Holocaust, 2 nuclear weapons is a Holocaust. And I think to ask them to take that risk is unconscionable. Now, let me go back to the United States, because we are vastly more powerful than Israel. I think this country, and I said this as early as 2001, this country should have as its policy what Reagan, Thatcher, and Pope John Paul II did in the 1980s. We should be for the absolute replacement of the current regime. We should apply real sanctions. In a worst case, we should blockade the flow of gasoline into the country and cripple their economy. We should be actively subsidizing every dissident group in the country and actively helping them with communications gear and other things, and make it quite clear worldwide. We are in favor of the replacement of the regime. Anybody who sustains the regime and engages in active violence and commits human rights should expect to be tried as a criminal. And I would do everything I could to break them down as rapidly as possible, both in North Korea and in Iran. We keep trying to find ways to deal with regimes that are outlaw regimes. And in the Iranian case, they have a leader who overtly calls for the destruction of Israel and overtly calls for the defeat of the United States, and in a country which has consistently fought us since 1979, and we keep pretending that there's some common ground.
But if regime change is over the horizon and they are on the threshold of acquiring a nuke, would you consider and would you carry out a military strike, given that, as you say, our capacity is infinitely more effective than an Israeli capacity?
In a hypothetical circumstance.
It's not hypothetical. It's going to get real.
It's hypothetical in the sense that you'd have to be in the room, look at the information, and make your best judgment at that moment. There are a lot of different ways of taking out things, starting with covert operations. I would actively favor very aggressive covert operations, but I'd also favor covert operations to take out the only refinery in the country, because you can bring that country to a halt in 30 to 60 days.
Steve.
Mr. Speaker, last week Major General Pete Fuller was dismissed in Afghanistan because of comments he made criticizing Hamid Karzai after Karzai had said that he would side with Pakistan in a war against the United States. Do you think he should have been fired? And if not, why not?
Look, I don't think it's generally a good, I don't know what's going to happen to his career as opposed to being reassigned. But I think it's generally not a good idea for 2-star generals to pick arguments with presidents. I once went to see a great commander, Don Starry, who was a 3-star at the time, and I couldn't see him. I was writing a book, and I was in, before I got to Congress. He had been sent back because he had given a speech at a high school in which he had explained that the real likelihood of war was between Russia and China. And the Carter administration thought that 3-star generals in command of corps probably shouldn't be speaking like this. Now, they talked sincerely. He got a 4th star, became the head of the Training and Doctrine Command. I worked with him for years. But I do think it's fair to say that generals ought to be relatively cautious about public speeches and probably shouldn't take on the host country president.
Juan.
Mr. Speaker, you know, whether we like it or not, the voters and the media are very interested in your personal life.
Okay.
And your daughter wrote, I guess back in May, trying to clear up an episode that's become sort of legendary about you and your wife and first wife in a hospital room serving divorce papers. And I'm just wondering if you think, given this kind of personal baggage and this fact that it's so widely discussed, that this is too much baggage for, that would and would prevent you from winning in the primaries or in the general election.
Well, the number of non-news people who ask me about it is remarkably small. Anybody who does ask, Jackie Cushman is my daughter. She writes a weekly column. She has a website, and you can go look up Jackie Cushman. She wrote her experience as my daughter, and I think you'll find there that it's thoroughly explained and that that particular story is purely and simply false. It's a lie.
But what about the baggage?
And we'll follow up on this question and many others online. More substance and viewers' questions as well. Special report online. Mr. Speaker, thank you very much. Stay tuned to see one way Speaker Gingrich apparently deals with some critics on the road.
Cranberry juice? Wake up!
That's good morning, veggie style.
For half the calories plus veggie nutrition, could have had a V8.
Cash Call Mortgage has the lowest rates of our lifetime. A 30-year fixed refi with no points at 3.875%, 3.966 APR. Get a lower monthly payment that will never go up. Act now. Just call 877-890-CASH.
Ford Fusion has now been named the most dependable mid-size car by J.D. Power and Associates. We go to Kimberly.
Any thoughts on this news?
I have no idea what's going on.
We are out. What was that?
They told me that it's the most dependable mid-size sedan, and they ran back into their little box.
I'm your blind spot. And my job is easy. Hide big things. You're good. And if you named your own price on car insurance, you could be paying for this yourself. So get Allstate. You can save money and be better protected from mayhem. Like me.
Shop less, get more. Make one call to an Allstate agent.
It's Pep Boys Million Tire Marathon. Tires from an incredible $29.99. Buy 2, get an oil change free. Buy 3, get the 4th tire free. All brands, all sizes. The lowest prices on tires anywhere guaranteed. Plus, shop online with TreadSmart at PepBoys.com. Information to installation in a click. Hurry, don't miss Pep Boys Million Tire Marathon.
Pep Boys does everything for them.
From the most inspiring voices of our time comes the most personal album of their career, Wicked Game, the new album from Il Divo.
Clean water for the village, but there are several villages nearby that could use our new system.
Introducing GoToMeeting with HD Faces. Simple, high-definition group video conferencing that will change the way you work. And perhaps a whole lot more. Visit GoToMeeting.com and sign up for your free 30-day trial.
Finally tonight, occasionally candidates are confronted on the road by critics from opposing ideologies, and sometimes those critics do some interesting things to try to get attention, like throwing a pie in a face or sprinkling glitter on a candidate. How candidates handle those